Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Just taking a look at XRP here, wanted to show you something a little bit interesting. Now this is the high that we set recently, running in at about that 291 level. So we formed a nice wedge pattern right here on the 15. We've also formed a nice fair value gap down here around the 225 level, 223 centered. Now this wedge is starting to descend and dip through that fair value gap, but as you can see, when it was on its way up, it dipped down into this, took a draw on liquidity, went up, set a high, consolidated, swept the liquidity at the top of that high, setting a new high, and it's retraced since then. So a lot of people have been panic selling right through here. Now we just recently, last night, came back down, took another draw on liquidity in that same fair value gap which held. You can see here by the wick that it actually wicked down to the very bottom of the fair value gap, holding nearly the 50% level, pulling back up, bouncing off of the 508 moving average, bouncing off of that range, coming up to the top, getting rejected by the trend line, putting a slight flag in, and bouncing off of the 508 yet again, exactly as I showed you in a previous video. Now we're coming up and checking the top of this upper trend line again. It's likely to get rejected here, but if it doesn't and it breaks out of here, we're going to have ourselves a nice move. If it consolidates, it could come back down here. The only bad thing about this pattern is to where it's descending through this fair value gap. If it came down and checked the bottom of this and fell through it too much, odds are it would end up coming down to this range right here, somewhere in the $1.90 range. But if it breaks through here and sustains, because this very well could just be a fake out, we could make some moves up to this range, 256, maybe even go up and set a new high. Now the other thing to notice here is on the daily chart. Now we came up, here's that first wick where we set the high, retraced, came up, swept that high, took out the buy side liquidity, consolidated back here. Now we're flagging nicely. Here's the fair value gap that I was speaking of. Here's the wedge. And being on the daily, another thing that you want to take a look at is the fact that this came up and swept, retraced. The next daily candle didn't take out this previous high, so it fell down. But what it did is it swept this low right here. Today's candle came up, did not set a new high, but it fell back down. And as you can see, coming to the bottom of this fair value gap, to the bottom trend line, swept this low right here, taking out the sell side liquidity from 4 days ago. So everything I can see here is looking extremely bullish. If I had to render a guess, and it would just be a guess, I would guess that we are most likely going to come up here and challenge this high up around that 267, 268 level. If we can break that, then we'll test and challenge this one. Everything you can see here is good. Swept the high, consolidated, swept this low. This candle swept all these lows and this low. And now we're trading within this wedge and challenging this upper trend line. So this is definitely something to keep your eye on. A lot of people are getting very bearish right here, but I think we're going to see a move to the upside, at least for the next day or two, and it could get very interesting. Now I do believe that the markets are going to turn blood red in December, probably somewhere towards mid-December, end of December, somewhere in that range. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the crypto markets are going to get slammed. I think the stock market is going to just get absolutely slaughtered, and it's most likely going to pull down crypto with it. And depending on what happens with the dollar, which will be the thing to keep your eye on, is the dollar and the volatility index, is if the dollar starts to lose value, money will flow into cryptocurrencies and precious metals. So even if stocks are getting slaughtered, just completely shit-handed to them, you'll see a lot of money flow into the crypto markets, which will take a big hit right from the go. But that money flowing into those will most likely prop up the crypto market. A lot of the retail crowd is really just now catching on to this crypto thing, starting to dig into it, learn about it, figure out exactly what it is, and even a lot of them are starting to invest in it. You've probably noticed that the normies who ignored you when you were talking about XRP at 17 cents and 25 cents and 30 cents and 50 cents, just laughed at you, didn't want to hear what you had to say. As soon as it hit $2.90, all of a sudden they became interested. So you're starting to see this retail influx into the markets, which in a lot of ways isn't a good sign, because the institutions and hedge funds, the big dogs, basically use retail as exit liquidity. So if there is going to be a drop in mid-December, the people that are going to suffer the most are going to be the ones that FOMO'd in the mid-twos and above. They're going to watch a lot of their investment just vaporize, especially if they're not traders and they don't know anything about trading, because if it drops 25%, they'll just panic sell and accept a loss, only to watch the market eventually bounce, rebound, and then shoot up to new all-time highs. So I'm not exactly sure which direction it's going to go. That's just my best guess based on what's going on here right now. It looks like we're going to make a move to the upside. So keep your eyes on this trend line right here and here, because that will tip you off. And then watch this fair value gap right here and the fair value gap below it, because if we punch through this one, we're going to the one below it. If we punch through that one, hold on tight. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it helps you kind of see clearly. It's good to stand back and get a wider perspective on things at times. Have a great day.